Imagine that. Tabletop role-playing game presents Super Moon, A Worlds Apart Story by M.A. Hayes. Lunis rose swollen and cold over Adnicles, big enough to fool the eye about distance. The blue light made the marble of the city walls look like water that had learned to stand. Frost clung to the olive trees along the outer road. From the pines beyond, something heavy moved, and the ground learned a new way to tremble. "Close the east postern," said Strategos Nikaya, voice low. The runner vanished down the steps. She kept her weight forward on the parapet, watching the line where the forest ended. Behind her, the towers of the old city-state showed all their best angles, domes like polished bones catching the moon. Adnicles still believed its walls were arguments. Tonight would test grammar. The first refugees came from the farms, 4 men, 2 women, one of them carrying a sleeping child under her cloak as if hiding it from the moon. "What did you see?" Nikaya asked. "Not werewolves," said one of the men. "We've seen werewolves. This wasn't that." He looked at his hands and realized he'd brought a scythe. He set it down like an apology. The watch bell hung in a little stone arbor mounted to the curtain wall. Chrysanthos, the bellman, hauled the rope twice, short and hard. Inside the city, stalls closed, shutters pinned. Priests smudged the lintels with smoke and muttered binding prayers that had worked on smaller nights. It came into view between 2 pines, too tall, too solid, wrong in its patience. Fur black as soaked iron, claws curved like a smith's idea of harvest, eyes red through the blue light. It didn't hurry, it simply arrived, and then there it was, less a creature than the night deciding to walk. "Dire Werewolf," Nikaya said. "Get the silver to the forward racks. Keep the bowstrings dry. No one fires until it chooses a line." The creature lifted its head and inhaled. Even that sounded heavy. Dogs in the lower city crawled under carts and would not be convinced out. The thing crossed the ditch in a single step, leaning its weight into the timbers as if testing a ship's hull. It wasn't ramming, it was learning. "We should send for the knights," Chrysanthos murmured. "They're 2 days out," Nikaya said. "We have tonight." The dire werewolf ran one hooked claw down a seam in the stone and listened to the sound it made. Then it sprang. The leap put it level with the battlements for a heartbeat, enough for 2 archers to shoot too early and watch arrowheads skip off fur that was more like armor than hair. It landed light for its size, flexed, leapt again, and this time one claw caught the coping. Marble chipped. "Hooks," Nikaya shouted. 3 lines arced down and caught around its forearm. Men leaned into the ropes, backs against merlins, feet braced. For a second, the wall felt like a boat with a large fish under it. The dire thing didn't thrash. It looked at the ropes, made a choice, and sawed through them in 2 clean pulls. The men staggered, and a young one went over the inner edge. Chrysanthos grabbed him by the belt without looking and set him down again. "It's not alone," said a voice to Nikaya's left. 50 yards along, in the blue mist gathered at the base of the wall, shadows moved, lesser wolves, lean and hungry, keeping a crescent that widened or tightened by inches as the dire led. They did not climb. They looked at the people on the wall and waited for a mistake. The dire werewolf tested again, this time at the sally gate, where the stone had newer patches. It pressed 2 claws into a mortar seam and levered. The sound was like a tooth being worried at from the wrong angle. Nikaya signaled, and a team below shoved a spar into the gate braces. The wood sang. The creature let go and walked south, calm as a man reading a market. "Why is it choosing?" Chrysanthos asked. "Because it can," she said. On the western bastion, a priest of Zaskarathrit spread salt in a straight line and began an old chant. The dire stopped under him and looked up without blinking. The chant faltered. The priest finished anyway, voice smaller than it had been when he started. Nikaya didn't fault him. The thing's gaze had weight. A squad of militia dragged up a ballista they hadn't touched in 20 years. Curses served as prayers while they cranked the torsion tight. The first bolt sailed clean and true, silvered head gleaming like a lie about hope. The Dire simply stepped sideways. The bolt split stone where it hit and sent a spray of chips over the lesser wolves. They didn't flinch. One picked up a fragment in its teeth and dropped it again, uninterested. Again, Nakia said, aim for the knees or the hips, make it work for balance. It leapt a third time, and Nakia met it with a halberd that had belonged to her mother. The silver along the blade's edge flashed cold. The strike bit, not deep, but exact. The creature's forearm opened and closed around the wound like a mouth learning a new word. It landed neatly, looked at the blood on the edge of the wall, and sniffed it as if it were a book. The cut closed to a seam as they watched. Down in the square, the ecclesia argued about who should speak. Agathocles would have known what to do, someone said. He went east with the levy, another answered. He doesn't have this night. Nakia heard the voices without listening to the words. The Dire had found its line. It crouched 6 body lengths to her right, then exploded forward, using the damp-barked roots at the base of the wall like a ladder. By the time it hit the top, it already had momentum to carry it through any greeting. 3 men went down under it like wheat sheaves. Chrysanthos swung the bell rope at its eyes. It batted the rope aside and took the top rail in its jaws and bit through as if taste mattered. "Keep your feet," Nakia shouted. She stepped into it and cut again. Others followed. The wall became a room too small for the number of people inside it. Iron punched, silver kissed. The thing moved with a patience so infuriating it felt personal. It didn't rage. It placed. When a spear found its ribs, it turned its weight and let the haft break. When a woman lunged too far, it was suddenly not where she had predicted, and her own speed did the rest. They drove it back over the parapet, barely. It fell the height and landed on all fours without a sound, took 3 steps, and vanished into the fog gathering along the moat. The lesser wolves moved with it, shadows reassembling. For a breath, everything held, the city, the forest, the cold, and the bright, like a held chord waiting for the next note. The note arrived at the north gate. The old keystone cracked first. The sound turned the necks on the wall before they understood what they had heard. Nakia ran. By the time she reached the corner bastion, the Dire had its shoulder set against the lower course of stone where flood had hollowed the earth years ago, and the city had repaired prettily, but not well. It heaved. The wall did what built things do when the forces that shaped them get reintroduced. It remembered the river underneath. The gate didn't explode. It lowered, calmly, 6 inches, then another 6, as the foundation shifted. Hinges shrieked in long, embarrassed lines. Bars jumped their seats. The spar inside split lengthwise. A boy trying to wedge a new beam lost his fingers and didn't notice for 3 heartbeats. "Back," Nakia shouted, "back to the second line." They had a second line because Adnicles had been conquered once and decided that lesson should remain on the architecture. It wasn't enough. The Dire stepped through the gap like a guest who knew her own invitation. Lesser wolves poured after, hugging the walls, eyes drinking the blue light. The city remembered how to scatter. Some ran uphill to the temples. Some ran to cellars and discovered what doors are like when too many people ask them for too much at once. Chrysanthos planted himself by the bell and rang until the rope burned his hands. When the rope snapped, he beat the bell with the iron mallet used for tuning, and didn't stop when the mallet head came off. The sound went on anyway in his arm for a while after that. In the market, a woman with flour on her sleeves shoved 2 children under her counter and told them to grab her ankles if they heard her cry. In a lane by the baths, a file of men with spears found their spears too long for the space and learned where to stand and how to pass a point forward without stabbing a friend. On the steps of the ecclesia, an old man begged a god he had mocked to make tonight someone else's story. Nakia met the Dire again in the plaza. The moon made everything too legible. There was nowhere to hide the wrongness of this scale in the geometry of streets. She had 20 around her who still listened well when told. They formed, not pretty, but tight, and offered the thing the kind of fight a city owes itself. It came in low. She took its shoulder with the halberd and shoved. The line held for 2 breaths, then 3. Someone to her left screamed and then bit the sound off to keep his own fear from interfering with his feet. Silver blades left lines that closed. Iron made noises that felt like jokes told at the wrong table. The dyer put a paw on the edge of her blade and pushed it down like she was a child. She let it go and stepped in under, punching with the spike. It skated on bone. "Roof!" Chrysanthos shouted from somewhere behind her. She didn't see him climb. She only saw the bellman leap from an awning with a coil of chain and catch the creature's throat like a lasso. He rapped twice, locked his hands, and went hard to the pavement. Legs braced, back flat. The chain dragged across fur with a horrible metal-on-stone sound. The dyer raked his chest open to red and did not get free for the breath she needed to swing again. The silver edge took its ear. The thing let go of Chrysanthos and looked at her as if trying to decide whether she was an object or an event. Then it moved past her. She turned to catch it and saw where it had chosen. The bell arbor, now empty, the frame like a throat open to sing. It hit the posts once. The old stone failed with dignity. The arbor came down and the bell went with it, hitting the plaza with a thunder that stole air. The dyer put a hind foot against it and shoved. The bell skittered like a kicked coin and wedged in a doorway. The sound it made there was a stuck thing trying not to be. The city's rhythm broke. Nikaya felt it in the way people moved, no longer synchronized by the toll. Fear doesn't need magic, it only needs a cue. The dyer took one step onto a fallen lentil and threw its head back. Its roar pressed the blue night flat. By morning, the smoke pillars could be seen from the river road. The second line held as neighborhoods, not as a city. Fires burned until they ran out of wood to be. The dyer left before dawn, leaving the lesser wolves at the carcasses until even their hunger got bored. It stepped over the north ditch as the sky went the color of old iron and vanished among the pines as if the night had remembered where it had left itself. Nikaya stood on what remained of the gate, with ash on her lips, and counted the living, because that is what commanders do when language fails. Chrysanthos was alive, with a chest sewn crooked. Someone had found his bell mallet head and tied it to a stick like a toy spear. He laughed once when he saw it, and then cried the way men do when they think their ribs will hold. A scribe cleared a patch of wall and carved 2 lines into stone with a nail. Jorthum, fall of Adnicles. No year. The year was obvious in the faces. When the sun finally showed itself, it lit broken marble and black tracks in the frost where something too heavy had walked and then not walked. The blue of Lunis went out, leaving a colorless morning that owed no one an explanation. The city would be repaired, renamed, argued about. Songs would invent reasons. Nikaya didn't care for reasons. She gathered the survivors who could hold tools and pointed them at what could be saved. The bell lay in its wedge, throat to cobble. She set a hand on it. "We'll raise you," she said, quiet. "We'll ring you again." No one answered. She didn't need them to. The wind moved through the broken arch and made a sound that wasn't music and wasn't grief, but tasted like both. And somewhere in the pines north of the road, something very large lay down to sleep until it didn't. This has been Supermoon by M.A. Hayes, published on November 4th, 2025. A worlds apart story set in the world of Nezra in the year 617 post-apocalypse. Imagine that tabletop role-playing game and the Worlds Apart campaign setting are the intellectual property of Marcus Allen Hayes. Worlds Apart was created in 1998, and Imagine That TTRPG began development in January of 2024. Copyright 2024-2025 Marcus Allen Hayes, all rights reserved. Please be sure to tune in for the next adventures in Nezra. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like and subscribe to this channel.